Good morning. I'd like to welcome the Forestry Committee back.
Thank you.
We've been away for a week and hope you all enjoyed your week off. I know one of us did. Went away. And but I attended quite a few meetings over the week off and caught people up on different issues of their concerns. And that went well, and so welcome back. And we'll call the order. It's a meeting of the Senate Ag Committee. It's Tuesday morning, March 12th. And this morning, we have a group of witnesses that are interested in the chicken parts bill. And so to get started with that, why don't we introduce ourselves, and then we'll get our legislative counsel, Michael O'Grady.
Yep, Brian Collmore representing the Rutland District.
Irene Rutter, Chittenden North, which includes Fairfax.
Brian Campion, Bennington County. Rich Westman, Mill Hill District.
And I'm Bobby Starr from Orleans District. So Michael, would you like to come up and we'll get started on H603.
Good morning. Morning. This is Michael O'Grady with Legislative Council. I'm going to review for you H603, an act relating to the poultry slaughter exception to inspection. So currently, as I believe you all know, the state regulates the slaughter of livestock and poultry, and the purpose of the regulation in statute is to impose and regulate requirements at least as strict as the Federal Meat Inspection Act and the Poultry Protection Inspection Act. So those are the two federal laws that regulate the slaughter of livestock and poultry. For the purposes of H603, we'll be talking about the federal requirements for slaughter of poultry. So generally, when you are going to slaughter poultry and sell it in commerce, especially in interstate commerce, you are required under the Poultry Protection Inspection Act to have that slaughter inspected by either a USDA inspector or a state of Vermont inspector. However, the Federal Poultry Product Inspection Act includes exceptions from inspection for two different tiers of poultry producer. Currently, under the Poultry Protection Inspection Act, there is an exception for people who are producing and slaughtering and processing 1,000 birds or less. And then there is a separate exception for those that are slaughtering, processing, and selling birds of 20,000 or less on an annual basis.
What is the difference?
There's just some different requirements that you need to meet for the 20,000, some additional sanitary standards, etc. Neither exception is limited by what product that the producer can sell from the bird. Specifically, the federal law does not require those exceptions to be contingent on selling the whole bird. It does not require the sale of the whole bird. It allows for the sale of the processed parts. In Vermont, when the first poultry products exception provision was added, which was in 2007, it was only added at the 1,000 bird threshold. And there were concerns from the agency at that time that about adulteration, about with each cut of the bird, there is opportunity for adulteration of the product. And consequently, in 2007, when the 1,000 bird exception was added in state statute, it required that the exception only allow for the whole bird to be sold, and you'll see that on page 1, line 14 of page 603. And subsequently, in 2017, there was a request by poultry producers to include under state law the 20,000 bird exception. At the time, the agency was concerned about going directly to 20,000 birds and instead asked for an interim threshold as well. And so in 2017, you added a 5,000 bird exception and a 20,000 bird exception. And both of those exceptions were also contingent on the producer only selling the whole bird. But remember, you're not required to do that underneath the federal law. And the purpose of the entire slaughter chapter is to ensure compliance with the federal law. Now, you can be more strict, but you don't have to be. Consequently, there's been requests that are reflected in 8603 to remove from the 1,000 bird exception, the 5,000 bird exception, and the 20,000 bird exception, the requirement or the criteria that the poultry products sold are only sold as whole birds. In addition, because of concerns that the agency raised regarding whether or not poultry products or a producer of poultry products would think that the exception would apply to effectively cooked products or ready to cook products. There has been a clarifying inclusion of the word raw for poultry products for each of the exceptions. So those are the changes, the striking of the whole bird requirement and the addition of the word raw prior to poultry products, prior to every use of the term poultry product for each of the 3 exceptions. Then there is one additional change, and that's on page 4, line 7, in the required label, which all of these products are required to have. It will also provide that the label shall be labeled with the name of the product. So that's page 4, line 7. So I can walk through specifically each change in H603, but it's going to be a little repetitive, just so you know.
Well, does any of the committee members have questions? So we understand pretty much what Michael has laid out for us. So 2017 was the last year that this law had been changed.
Well, 2017 is when you, the General Assembly, added the 5,000 bird and the 20,000 bird exception.
Right.
Remember, the 5,000 bird exception is not a federal provision; it's a state provision, but it does allow producers to go to a next level from 1,000 birds without having to go all the way to 20,000. You know, it gives them a benchmark effectively to move up from 1,000 birds. But, you know, there's a few more requirements for the 20,000 bird exception, but it's not that many more. So producers honestly have, in my opinion, more of an incentive just to qualify for the 20,000 bird exception and then produce however many up to that exception per year.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just so I'm clear, the feds have 1,000 and 20,000,
Yes.
and the only difference is Vermont has that interim.
We want to have an interim there.
And Got any other questions for Michael? If not, Michael. Well, we do have a list of witnesses, but maybe as long as we're talking in regards to the numbers, like 1,000, 5,000, 20,000, we ought to maybe have Steve Collier up next to talk about if we've had any problems arise, because we've got 7 years under our belts with these larger numbers. So would you have any indication there's been any problems with the rise in the numbers?
So, good morning, Senator Starr. It might actually be Steve Collier from the Agency of Agriculture. Julie Bover is the chief of the program, and she's really our expert. So with you, if it's okay with you, I was planning to just wait, and if you have any questions at the end, I'd be happy to try to help, but I think she's better equipped to provide those sorts of details, and she's here ready to testify if you'd like.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't,
not aware of any problems to answer your
Yeah,
question, but Julie would be better equipped to.
yeah, Julie, could you answer that? Have we had any problems with the increase in numbers since 17 that you're aware of?
I am not aware of any problems that we have had in either one of them. Right now, the spectrum of the 20,000, we do not have any producers that go up to 20,000. I believe that if they're gonna go up to that amount of production, they're gonna come under inspection. Because they need to have a focus on where they're gonna be able to sell all the birds and the parted birds if this goes through. And there's more than just farmers markets, restaurants, and right from the farm that these poultry can be sold. But no, the under 1,000 folks out there, we don't know a lot of them. They don't have to register. We don't have any label approvals that we have to do for them. So most of them, we don't know. And unless we get a complaint, and we haven't had any.
And I'm sure if there was a problem, your phone would ring, so.
It would, yes, definitely. Thank you.
All news is good news. Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
And Paul, would you like to testify? Paul Stone, a turkey grower and former commissioner of ag up down Addison County. Good morning, Paul, and welcome.
From Orwell, Madison County,
Orwell.
over in the banana belt. No snow.
No, snow.
No snow.
All these.
Nothing in well, no, we do have some in Bennington now, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I appreciate the opportunity to testify. I have, my wife is Frances Stone is here today.
Yep.
And, we purchased our farm in 1976. It was a dairy farm, stocked and equipped, and we milked cows until 1989. We had started turkeys in 1987, 2 years prior to selling our cows in 1989. Been in the turkey business ever since, 36 years. In the beginning, we were also boarding 650 dairy heifers, so we were still pretty involved in the dairy business. Right now, we grow around 36,000 turkeys a year, slaughter. Half of those go to the fresh market. Our market is in New England, in eastern New York, down in New York City. We're federally inspected. Our son and his wife now actually own a Stonewood Farm Corporation. And we lease the land and buildings to them. They have 3 children, 2 of them are involved in the farm. And so it's my parents helped start us. So it's a 4-generation farm. We've been there since 1976. We've evolved in the turkey business from 300 turkeys the first year, slaughtered at a custom plant, which was not inspected. And I say that looking back at that, the facilities were pretty primitive and the process was pretty primitive. And I'm just gonna pass a picture out. This is
Thank you.
100 years ago. This is the way turkeys were transported to
That-
market.
Great. Where was that taken?
I don't
You're
know.
not sure, yeah,
I
it's a
don't
great
know.
shot, yeah.
Prior to that, turkeys were driven to market. They actually hiked to market, and the farmers would dip their feet in hot tar, protect their feet, sort of like you a boost. Welcome.
It's funny, may I interrupt for a quick second? So I was reading a book about Boston recently, back in the day, how they would, those turkeys, they would walk them, like prod them along on their way to
Right.
market. Really interesting.
And geese too. And
Uh-huh.
so in the town of Corinth, which is just south of here, we have Goose Green, named after the geese, because the turkeys and geese would stay in a town green for protection overnight before they went hiking on. So it's quite different today. Our turkeys are all grown inside to be protected from avian influenza and other diseases passed by. Waterfowl that fly over and wild animals and so on. We started out growing turkeys on range, but after about 10 years, we just gave that up. It's just too hard. When you get close to Thanksgiving, you have too much mud and snow, and it just be impossible. So we have a fairly long history in turkey production, and as Bobby said, was Commissioner of Agriculture in 1985, 1986. Back then, it was the Department of Agriculture. Now it's an agency, been elevated. So, and as commissioner, I've experienced some real horror stories. Now, Julie just said that there haven't been any problems as far as she knows, but there have been some real horror stories over the years in inspection breakdowns. In 1985, there was a producer who was inspected, but let poultry turkeys out in the market just before Thanksgiving, and the Department of Agriculture at that time had calls from people that the turkeys smelled bad. Unfortunately, I didn't receive the call as commissioner. It was handled by somebody in the department, and they just told the people to just cook it longer and make sure it's really well cooked. And the proper response should be, don't eat that. Period. Right now, today, there's an incidence of listeriosis. There's been 2 people diagnosed with listeriosis, and it's been traced maybe to Shaw's Market right here, the deli in Shaw's Market right here in Montpelier. Listeriosis is a very serious, deadly bacteria that is widespread in our environment and can easily infect poultry and not handled properly. There was a case, and this involves milk, but it's an example of horror stories. Shelburne Farms in Shelburne, Vermont has a dairy, Old Brown Swiss, beautiful dairy, clean, everything's nice. They in 1986, they were entertaining a school group, gave them a taste of raw milk. Every kid in that group came down with Klebsiella, another serious bacteria. So, and the worst problem is the listeria outbreak in southern New England, basically in Boston in 1980, where 42 people died of listeria bacteria. So these things need to be taken really seriously. So my position on this bill is, even though I understand it's attempting to change amend the existing legislation, my position on this bill is it should not be passed. All the language in this bill should be stricken, and you should add language that takes from the statutes on the possibility of poultry being uninspected. I just think it's that serious. The other thing is, it very clearly states in in enabling legislation, the findings of fact. And I've handed out my testimony, and so there the findings say that, to quote, it's essential for the public interest that the health and welfare of consumers be protected by ensuring that these commodities are wholesome, unadulterated, and properly marked, labeled, and packaged. That's the findings of the legislation, so that's really important. It also goes on to say in the same paragraph that it's an unfair advantage to those people who are not required for inspection. Unfair advantage because it's much less costly for them to slaughter, process any kind of poultry if they don't have to have inspection. So my position is remove all the language that permits no inspection of poultry slaughter and insert language that takes it out of the statute. And I hope you'll consider that. I would point out that we are required as a federally inspected slaughter plants to have, I got a list of 17 things here that we have to do that people who are uninspected don't have to do. We have to have an inspectable slaughter processing facilities, have walls that can be washed and sanitary floors. And we have to have potable water, which is checked on. We have to have septic disposal for human waste. We have to have a way of slaughter, of disposing of plant wastewater, which is a huge issue. We have a memorandum of understanding between the Department of Agriculture back in 1985 and the Agency of Natural Resources that small farmers who are only slaughtering for themselves can spread wastewater on farmland. So that's a long-standing memorandum that's still in effect. We have to have a way to dispose of offal. I can tell you, if anybody was slaughtering 20,000 head of poultry, offal is a huge problem. So we compost all offal. We have a compost pad that's a whole acre that we compost on, and then once the compost is cured and gone through its process, we spread that on our agricultural land. We're responsible for worker health and safety. The labeling requirements that we have to go through on the federal level are much more strict than this legislation in Vermont calls for. We have to have public building compliance. We have to have HACCP protocols. HACCP is the Hazardous Analysis Critical Control Points. This is a document that we have to put together about 10 years ago, and we have to update it every year. This looks at the entire operation and requires us to look at every point in that operation and make sure that it is operating properly and with sanitary and there's no protocols being broken. We also have a SSOP, which is a sanitary standard operating procedure. We have to have temperature checks on the slaughter process as the chickens are cooled. We have requirements that they have to be below 40 degrees before we can bag them. We have requirements for refrigeration and freezing afterwards. I don't see any of these requirements in any of the legislation that permit uninspected animals. We have to follow protocols and techniques to produce salmonella-free product. This requires basic sanitation, but it also requires us treating turkeys with a product that kills the salmonella, but then turns harmless afterwards. And we have salmonella checks. The federal inspector supervises us to take salmonella samples, and we have to pass a certain number of those. We have ante-mortem and post-mortem inspection of all of our birds going into it. We have to have a retail license. We have to pay inspectors overtime. So if somebody were to slaughter a lot of poultry, a lot of turkeys, they can have decidedly unfair advantage over in terms of the cost and the kinds of things that we have to comply with. So I'll put there, and if there's any questions,
Yeah.
I'd be happy to try to answer.
Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what are those costs exactly? How much are we talking about? All these 17 requirements, if you want to.
The cost? Well, I don't have a figure for that, but we've invested millions of dollars in our plant. And not just the physical plant, but the whole process, the machinery, water supply. And I don't know, I can't give you a breakdown of these exact costs, but basically they drive what we have to charge for returns. And our wholesale prices between $3 and $4 a pound delivered to stores or to a distributor.
Okay.
The costs are enormous.
Yeah, Paul, isn't the main reason that you went federally inspection or inspected so you could sell out of state? Like, if you sell in state, it's one thing, but if you, once you start crossing state lines, isn't that more rigorous?
Probably not. I think state inspection basically mirrors federal inspection. We have a federally inspected plant, and federal inspection is required across state lines. But I would not operate a slaughter plant and sell poultry unless it was inspected. I would not do an uninspected plant, no matter how many. I just feel I have a real responsibility as a poultry producer and somebody selling a product to people for their safety. So it's a strong thing to think about.
Other questions for Paul?
If I may, one other thing I forgot to put on this list, is we're required to, what's called humane slaughter law. Now, the Humane Slaughter Act federally came around in, I think in the 1960s, and it requires that, animals be rendered senseless before they're killed. So we have a electric stun knife. The turkeys are hung on a overhead conveyor line. We have electric stun knife. As soon as it touches their throat, it knocks them out, and they're completely senseless at that point. Then you cut the jugular vein and the carotid artery, and they bleed to death very quickly. So there's no mention of humane slaughter in the no inspection statute. And that is a huge thing to us, because we really feel strongly that animals should be humanely handled and slaughtered.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Stone, as I understand it, so this bill would allow, and I apologize, it's been a week, we were on town meeting week, so I may make some mistakes here, and I'll look to others to correct me. So if somebody had some chickens at the house, and they're bringing them to market, it allows them to, again, bring now not just the whole chicken, but wings and different parts. Are you saying that will then just open, even that process opens us up to infections and possible bacteria
The more processing you do, the more
in general?
in general, for instance, ground products, like hamburger or ground turkey or whatever, exposes a huge number of surface area.
Yeah.
And so the federal inspectors check our ground product for bacteria and other things, because it is more susceptible to adulteration.
Thank you.
And I don't mean adulteration on purpose, I mean just
Yeah.
Nobody's doing it on purpose. This is, things happen.
Sure, thank you very much.
Other questions?
No, it's helpful.
Anything else, Paul?
That's all I can think of right now. Thank you very much. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
well, thank you for driving up this morning. Do we have people?
Senator Starr isn't in that photograph, is it?
No, it had to have a motor.
He's driving, he's driving that team of work.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, I think back when Paul was, I think I was chair of the House Ag Committee back
Yes,
then.
you were.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
Francis Horgan was chair of this committee.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah, Francis was up in the little room where Bill was. Bill Blue.
Kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
No kidding.
Wow,
Was the Senate.
My God. Same size, everything. Wow.
Yeah,
Steve.
I think we got our work done back then, just as good as we are today.
Yeah.
Okay, Linda, do we have, Amber Boyle?
Amber is on the screen. Yep. He's coming.
Morning, Amber.
Good morning.
You're on next on our list.
Well, that makes me feel a little targeted, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah. So, are you a chicken, you raise chickens?
I raise 13,000 broilers a year. Yes.
Yep. And could you, tell us your thoughts in regards to 8603?
Well, for time wise, I can pretty much say ditto of what Mr. Stone said. I started out as a kid, we had chicken on the farm for our own use. A lot of times that was laying hens turned into chicken and gravy. But I've grown broilers all my adult life. I grew the turkeys for my wedding reception dinner. I was 40 years before my time apparently, but so I've got not as long as Mr. Stone, but I've got some years experience growing them.
Yeah. And how many turkeys?
I don't grow any turkeys commercially yet.
Just chickens?
Just the broilers.
Yeah.
13,000 square lot.
And
So
how
just
do you get rid of your chickens?
I sell them here. We have a store here on the farm. And I sell them there. I wholesale them. We supply several farmers who have farm stands of their own.
Yeah.
We take the majority of our weekly slaughter goes to Middlebury Co-op as fresh birds. They take a few whole, but they take primarily cuts. I just delivered there this morning.
Yeah, and do you have any, have you read through the bill?
I have. I watched the testimony before the House as well.
Yeah.
And I sent you all in a slideshow and a fairly lengthy letter outlining what we do here that's required under inspection, and some things that we do that are not required. But as Mr. Stone said, as the last person to see that chicken, I've got a responsibility to my neighbors, to the state of Vermont, to anybody who buys my chicken. It's my responsibility that chicken is clean and safe for them to consume.
Yeah, and so you have a slaughter facility right on your farm?
I do.
Yeah.
We started out as state inspected. But we started out uninspected. We went to state inspected as demand grew. And in 2020, maybe 2021, those years kind of blend. We went under the CIS inspection program, which is federally inspected, but not USDA. It allows me to cross state lines, but not sell outside of the country.
So you, and how often do you slaughter?
Once or twice a week. All
So-
year round.
You're on a schedule then?
I am.
Yeah. Do you have a?
Well, I did, but you've answered one of them, Amber. Where is the farm?
We are in Isle Lamont.
Ah, okay.
Oh, you're way up.
And I was gonna ask about whether you were inspected, but you just answered that, so thank you.
Do you want to see her slideshow?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
She sent a slideshow if you'd like me to show it.
Yeah, good.
Any questions for Amber?
No, thank you.
Should be there too.
I did hear somebody comment. I did hear somebody make a comment about 13,000 chickens.
Yeah.
So I did the math, because I have to report that to the state. So assuming that all 13,000 birds survive, which generally you lose some, we figure an average at 5 pounds each bird. That makes 65,000 pounds. And that translates into 32.5 tons of chicken that my farm is providing to the state of Vermont.
That's a lot of chicken.
That's kind of my opinion. I was a little shocked the first time. I was shocked the first time we did that math.
Yeah. Well, that was a good exercise for you.
This is my livelihood. I don't have any other work. I was
Yeah.
born a farmer and it's looking like I'm gonna die a farmer.
Well, that's good, and you seem to have good markets, so year-round market, so
We do.
that's good. You must have real good chicken.
I have a woman who drives from Bennington about once a month when the weather permits. And I
Right.
asked her what made it worth driving all the way up here for my chicken. And she said, the first word that comes to mind is clean.
Yeah.
And
Then,
that is my goal.
isn't that Massachusetts, Bennington?
Well, I grew up in Walden, so to me, Bennington is pretty far down there, yeah.
Senator Campion's from Bennington, he's here on the committee.
It's great to hear that somebody's coming all the way up.
No,
They-
that's
great.
good. Other questions for Amber? Anything else that you'd like to offer us, Amber?
No, in my letter that I sent, I covered a lot of the exact same footage that Mr. Stone covered, which made me feel good because I thought I was being a little overprotective. My mother said that I was mother hen to everybody. But I will add that I don't remember now who asked about the financial costs of the 17 steps
Yep.
that we have to do. The financial costs, if you compare that to one life lost, what's the financial cost for that family?
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true.
The,
Now, when did you tell us when you built your slaughter facility?
we built it in 2015. We built it just at that time. We had no intention of going under inspection. But like I said, I'm everybody's mother and I'm kind of an overthinker. we heard that Randy Quenneville was gonna be out inspecting a nearby plant. And I emailed him and asked if he would come out and take a look at our plant before we got everything sort of caulked in and sealed up. What we would need to do in the future if we decided to go under inspection. And there was so little that we needed to do to change from our on-farm slaughterhouse to have the option for inspected. We're our own building contractor, so I was only looking at building materials.
Yeah.
We immediately built it to meet inspection. And then we spent about a year and a half doing our HACCP plans and our SSOP because that was all foreign to me. And Julie will back me up on this. I didn't want to tell them I didn't know what a HACCP plan was. And I was Googling my little fingers off for HACCP, HASSOP, like a hassock. Do you remember when we used to have a hassock in the living room? Instead of an ottoman, you had a hassock. I thought that it was a word. And once they filled me in that it was an acronym, my life got a bit easier. But that's what we came into.
Yeah.
But we just, as our business grew, as our demand grew, we grew with it to meet it. We kind of flapped on the kite strings, catching up with what was going on. And we've done anything that we've been asked to do to make sure that our meat was meeting inspection and that we're sending out clean chicken. Because chicken is pretty volatile. If you do it clean, it's still volatile.
Brian?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So it sounds like you got a lot more comfortable living room than I do. My hassocks are normally outside, Julie, not in the living room. But anyway, I know in 2017 you were under state inspection, and then a couple of years later, I'm not sure how many, you went under CIS. And Senator Starr mentioned earlier when we were talking to Mr. Stone that the federal one allows you to go interstate. Is that the reason that you switched from just the state inspection to the federal one?
Well, I'm on the New York border. So
Okay.
having the federal inspection, I currently sell all of my chicken in Vermont. But having the federal inspection allows me that if somebody who I honestly can be in New York way quicker than I can be in any of your towns. Because
Okay,
New York is 15 minutes from me.
yeah. Okay, that clears that up. Thank you. And this is a great letter and a great visuals with what you sent to the committee, so I appreciate that.
Oh, I wanted to make sure that you knew what we were doing, what was required of us.
Yeah, are you located near the apple orchard up there or?
I'm about 4 miles this side of the apple orchard. You got to go past me to get to him.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Isle of Mont's got one road on and the same road off. So I'm about 3 miles onto the island. So I've got 2 shots at everybody.
Any other questions from the committee? You're more than welcome to stay on and listen. And we'll be taking testimony on the bill. We just got this 2 weeks ago, so we'll be taking testimony on it from our constituents and people in Vermont. And so if at any point you want to get back on, you just send us a note and we'll be glad to hear from you.
I will do that. And if any of you want to come out and see the actual slaughterhouse, you're more than welcome to. You just can't come on a Monday or before noon on Tuesday.
Are you sleep late those days?
Monday is slaughter and Tuesday is delivery. I've been to Middlebury and back already this morning.
Oh, goodness, yeah. You're an early riser.
By necessity.
Yeah. Birds. Well, thank you very much for your time, and we'll move on to Caroline.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, dear committee. For the record, Caroline Gordon, Legislative Director of Rural Vermont. So, poultry processing under exemption is one of Rural Vermont's legacy issues. Back then in 2007 and 2017, Rural Vermont has been here to advance the exemption for allowing the personal use of poultry slaughter on farms. We also since many years hear from our members that it would be really making a tremendous economic difference for them if they were not just to be allowed to sell them by the whole bird, but in parted birds. And then why we didn't do anything about it, because we thought, I don't know, we're not sure if this would fly. But then last year, there was new research done by one of our national partner organizations, the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. And they have a national overview of what are the poultry exemptions state by state. And when I looked at that, I realized, geez, the USDA is allowing for the parted bird to be sold under exemption. Why aren't we doing that? And that's was the origin of this bill, that we said, okay, we can go a little further as the USDA is going a little further. And I don't want to take too much time myself, as we really have many of our members who are really in support of this and want to see that, and some of them here today. So I want to not take all that time. I just want to make some responses to what I heard this morning of Mr. Stone and Amber also. And what I hear is there's existing poultry producers who have undergone years and decades or a lifetime of their own investments to be able to get under inspection and then generate their market and their sales. And that there might be this perceived that if we allow for this, is it unfair? And I just want to make some comments on that. And at Rural Vermont, what we see this as is as a scale appropriate regulation. This would allow for the very small to put up shop and grow their business, to then also invest, potentially become from uninspected into custom, from custom into inspected slaughter. And when we look at the live stories that were shared this morning, we know that's the truth of those stories too. Mr. Stone shared they started uninspected as custom slaughter, and Amber just shared they started uninspected too, to grow their business. And so that's really what's needed. And in numbers, I'm a beginning farmer myself. My dream is I want to start a chicken hatchery. That's my ultimate business goal. I applied for funding that you appropriated last year as the meat development grant. It was underfunded 50% by the agency of what was requested. Well, I just got an email yesterday how many applications they had and what they appropriated, what you would have to appropriate to make that meat development grant meet its target. $25 million, $25.8 million, almost $26 million is what's missing in the meat and poultry industry as investments right now to set these businesses up for the success they need. So the beauty of this bill is there's no price tag. We can just strike the word whole bird, and our farmers will testify that this will already be a tremendous economic driver for them to be able to grow their business in a scale appropriate way. Is it unfair? Well, keep in mind, neither of these farmers will be able to sell any of their birds retail. Farm to Plate was here testifying, where do people buy their food? The statistics show people all buy their food retail. Any poultry farmer who will profit from selling their uninspected bird in parts has to go through tremendous marketing to get it to their customer. Farmers market, that's a small clientele that goes to the farmers market, to the farm store, people that drive to the farm store, get it there or buy it directly for the farm. Those are those very cautious customers who really need and want to, for their own ethics, purchase directly from the farm. The bulk market is not. fed through those market channels. So all those poultry farmers will still have tremendous challenges in hitting their market that way. And of course, no interstate commerce. So all these, and under exemption process birds all have to stay in the state. And in terms of safety, just want to make an anecdote from the House side and the process there. Chair Durfee has been reaching out to the Department of Health. Because we all remember probably in this building what the pushback was to get the poultry exemption done from the Department of Health back then. They didn't want to comment because there was no issue. So we're at this point with processing birds under the exemption where it has been so little of an issue that the Department of Health doesn't even want to come in and testify. And in terms of safety, otherwise, we have the word raw in now, and we put it in to also take away a little bit again what would otherwise be allowed federally, because the federal government allows also for not just the bird to be parted and ground, but also to be processed into things like chicken pot pie. That the agency makes sure we don't want by adding the word raw. So that's the two anecdotes I wanted to give in terms of food safety, that we don't have a Department of Health here opposing us right now. And we also already scrolled down a little bit from what would be otherwise allowed federally if we were just to take out the word small bird. So with that, I hope the figure I've shared with you shows that there's actually a tremendous investment needed in the meat and poultry industries in Vermont. We certainly could all benefit also from more poultry slaughterhouses and more custom facilities, but the barrier there is the money and the investment. And here we have a very simple solution to already now help so many small poultry producers to grow their market and help us become more self-reliant on our poultry.
It wasn't too many years ago, we had a mobile poultry slaughter facility that would go from farm to farm and be inspected, but I think that was sold a few years back, right?
Yeah, that's good. Julie has an update on a young entrepreneur who's moving to the state who might also do poultry. I'm not sure if he's a livestock.
Actually, he's not gonna be doing any poultry, he's more of a livestock slaughter, and it will be all custom. He'll go to farm and be able to provide that custom slaughter. He's currently in Michigan right now, working on his mobile rig, soon to be in Vermont. Hopefully, we were thinking June, July, but now he's maybe possibly pushing it up, so he might be here around mid-May. So we're keeping our fingers crossed, but he's very excited. He's originally from Connecticut. He's going to be living in New Hampshire until he can find some land and a possible home here in Vermont. But he's very, very eager to get back to New England.
So that'll be a private mobile slaughter unit for birds?
No, it'll be livestock custom exemption. So he will have a license with our agency and we will oversee it. We will do periodic inspections. It won't be animal to animal inspection as we do under our meat inspection program. It'll be more like periodic inspections. And he'll be limited. Like I said, he's a unit, he's got a big rig, he won't be able to travel in the winter time. It's only gonna be during the summer months when the roads are clear, and hopefully we won't have the 5-month seasons we've already seen this year. And he will basically be 3 days a week until his clientele gets bigger. But he's working with a lot of our custom processing facilities, working on accounts to be able to move the animals, because they're the ones that will be breaking down the carcasses into individual cuts for the owners of those animals.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're very welcome.
Question, do you have any idea how many people grow chickens and turkeys in Vermont for members of your crew?
No, but I am very sure that it's not the 600 dairy farms, but thousands. I would say I would assume that I can make a true statement that there's more poultry producers in the state than dairy farmers.
Animals or?
Not cows, but farms.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Carol. Rose?
Hi, yeah, my name is Rose Zachary. I own Union Brook Farm and I do have a slideshow, here today, since Linda, I'd love to, go through and take up some of your time. I'm really happy to be here today in person because while I can appreciate the process that Stonewood Farms and Happy Bird Poultry has gone through, I don't know how relevant they are exactly to this bill. As you mentioned, 36,000 birds and selling outside of state, is not gonna fall under this exemption, neither would 13,000 birds. So, I'm gonna speak specifically about our farm. My wife would be here today, but our sheep are being shorn. And so I'm here to tell you about our story. We met in 2015 at Maple Wind Farm, one of the largest poultry producers in the state. For 6 years, my wife managed the pork program at Von Trapp Farmstead. And for 2 years, I worked under USDA inspection for Babette's Table, meat packing, co-packing. So I have a lot of reverence for everything that everyone's spoken today and experienced under inspection and exemption. Our main enterprise, we can go to the next slide, is pasture poultry. We raise 2,000 birds a year. We are operating on 5 acres, so we are max capacity for our scale. We don't seek to raise any more than 2,000. That is where we will stay. And we process all on farm currently under exemption. We are in compliance for our label and our farm is registered. We have a retail license. We are also a dog food manufacturer as we are limited in our ways to sell our poultry. So we can only have 2 products, a whole bird and dog treats. And so I'm sure all of you can appreciate that when you're starting a business from scratch, there's a lot of investment required. There's 3 main areas of investment that was required for our pasture raised poultry system. The upper half of the screen, you can see our brooder facility. We raise our poultry in batches of 200. Every chick comes the day they're hatched from Ohio and they spend the first 4 weeks in there. Studies have shown that if you can maintain a temperature range of 87 to 93 degrees for the first 4 weeks of their life, you will have better health outcomes and a higher yield at processing date. So that is a $20,000 facility right there, just the brooder. That doesn't include the $6,000 in silos so that we can be competitive in the grain market. Beneath,
So that's all heated.
that's heated. You can see the black pipe on the outside. That's a propane heater system. And the metal rim up top, it's basically heating the floor. So we have efficiency of less than 10% energy loss with the system. You can see the sides are down, but the sides can roll up for, those July days that are perfect and we don't need additional heat. But our first chicks will come the first week of April. So if it's anything like it is today, we will need to throw a lot of heat. So anyway, not to get from the new stuff, but beneath you can see our mobile range coops. We learned that at Maple Wind, we were a part of that transition there. And so we went straight to mobile range coops. We pull them every day. The birds spend 4 weeks till their last day in those coops. So the next slide shows our processing area, which is another main commitment for us. Our 2 main commitments are pasture raised and processed on site. We have always been committed to this, mostly because there are not enough services offered in the state for poultry producers. Me taking my bird to a inspected facility to have that service done for me would require the birds to be crated sometimes overnight, at least 3 a.m, driven on the highway an hour away, and each bird, at least at Maple Wind, I'm pretty sure their services are $6 a bird. And my birds cost me about $2.50 per bird to raise. So to add an additional $6 per bird would eat all of my profit. And so you can see here, this is our third tier of investment. We needed a plucker machine, a scalder machine, stainless steel tables. And you could go to the next slide, please. Last year, we were able to get a pasture surface water grant through the Agency of Agriculture for our wastewater system. So we poured a concrete pad that encapsulates our entire processing area, that has trench drains leading to a state-of-the-art, septic system that we can pump and spread onto our fields. We similarly compost our offal. We do save a lot of our offal. Like I said, we do make dog treats that are chicken liver and heart, so anything we can keep out of compost, we do. There is a lot more investment required to become state inspected from where we're at now. Where the truck is in the upper right-hand corner is now a walk-in cooler freezer, that's currently on and will allow us to air till birds, which we're really excited about for this coming season. It'll allow us to break our processing days into 2 days. So the first day will be slaughter, evisceration, and cooling, and the second day will hopefully be parting and packaging and order and marketing and sales. We currently sell all of our birds mostly wholesale to caterers and restaurants throughout the state and the Capital City Farmers Market. So it is all direct. In 2023, our 2,000 whole birds produced about 8,800 pounds, so not quite Ember scale, but like I said, we're not looking to increase our scale, just increase, decrease our mortality rate, increase our average weight per bird. So because I'm going into my 4th season and I'm at the scale that I'm at, it's pretty easy for me to run a few scenarios on what this bill could do for our business. So I run one scenario that looks at parting just half of those birds, which would be about 4,400 pounds parted. And when I am looking into calculations, I am considering a 30% loss. You could go to the next slide if you don't mind. And so when I look at the parts that I could sell through this bill, of course, chicken breasts, chicken tenders are gonna sell for a higher price per pound and be more popular than, say, chicken backs, chicken necks. So I'm looking at an average price per pound at $11. Right now, I'm selling my whole bird at $5.25 per pound average. So in 2023, I've grossed about $44,000 just off of my poultry enterprise. So looking at an average price per pound increase to $11 a pound, significantly less meat sold would result in a little under $34,000. And I think that I could do that amount of sales in the first year with the passage of this bill. I have currently no chicken in inventory, and those are all whole bird sales. So I do already have the market for whole birds, but I am not gleaning as much as I could from that enterprise with whole birds. And so I think in a couple of years, it would not be crazy to say at all that I could be selling all of my produced birds parted. There is a hole at the Capital Cities Farmers Market. There are many people who do not buy my whole birds and I send elsewhere because they don't want a whole bird. They just want breast for dinner, etc. And so I think in that max capacity scenario, that would increase my gross to about $67,000. And I just think that it's really important to set this bill in the larger context of a changing agricultural landscape. I do think that this bill will have ramifications for farm viability. It will have direct impact to my business. I came to Vermont by UVM. I've always lived in rural Vermont since. I have created a business that in 3 years allows for my wife and I to be home full time, but it doesn't allow for family planning. Or, really looking at agricultural, at ag farms as business. you know, the situation is different than in 1985. Mortgage rates, land costs, et cetera, it's not the same. And so I think that, you know, given the fact that I have sold 4,000 birds safely to date to the state at large, I am a farm specifically that is in, this exemption. I care a lot about being in compliance. I'm in communication with inspectors often and also want to have all my labels meet requirements and am always open to feedback and ways to improve. And I think that this is a bill with support from the USDA and is bipartisan and would be a great opportunity to move the state forward in addressing a lot of nuanced issues that it faces. So I think that's all I have for today. Thanks for hearing me.
Yeah, thank you. And where are you located?
We're in Northfield, so I didn't travel very far to get here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, you've only been at it a couple of years, I guess.
Yes, so going to my 4th season this summer, yeah.
And like being around here a while, you know, we know that family size is shrunk.
Right.
And there, you know, people don't want to buy a whole chicken when there's only, you know, 2 or 3 in the family. And so I would expect your business would increase if you could sell it in parts, pieces.
Yeah, and I think that I really do take a different stance. In general, I believe competition is healthy and I support it. I was here a couple weeks ago as a part of the board for the market. I'm the secretary there. So anyway, I've been spending a lot of time here, and I appreciate the participation. And I think that at least year to year for applications that I've seen come through the market, I've never said no to a like vendor in my categories. I believe that we all support each other and have different offerings. And I don't believe that this law will have ramifications to former businesses that spoke. Like I said, we don't have the same markets. I raise 100 turkeys a year, just to bring up the turkey aspect. They're all direct. I'm going to continue selling them direct. So I don't think that it's apples to apples, is my personal take.
Yeah, questions from the committee? No, Irene?
I'm curious, about the supply, like, do you think at some point we'll be saturated with chicken parts, or is there still a demand that exceeds supply?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and one that I think about in terms of like beer or locally roasted coffee. I don't know that we are so far below meeting the demand right now that I think it would take a long time for that to become the case. And I also think the reality is that not every farmer raising poultry wants to process their own birds. And so I'm also always in favor of more opportunity for farmers to just raise those birds and take them elsewhere. Just because it's a priority of mine doesn't mean it needs to be a priority for everybody. So I do think that this is one way to alleviate the issues in meat processing in the state, which have had ramifications that we've seen. Yeah, we'll see if we'll ever reach that, but I think we're so far from there.
So it's craft chicken now is the big thing.
I think so. If it could be, you know, and I think that you know, I do have a lot of appreciation for the historical process that this has gone through. It is not lost on me that I don't know that our business would be where it's at today if the exemption hadn't increased in 2017. So I just think that we don't always know where things will go until we let them, within reason and with you know, of course, guidance. So
Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, so if I am, just say I can't answer that. But I did get some correspondence and a couple phone calls during the town meeting week from folks that were out of my district, but also part of the farmers market here in Capital City. And so I did want to at least ask the question, because we're getting closer to opening up, I assume.
Mhm.
How, have there been meetings? How is that going? Can you speak to that, or maybe you don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. I attended a meeting this week with Commissioner Fitch.
Yeah,
And Anson Tebbets joined the phone call, and I left feeling a lot better. We are working towards a formal memorandum of understanding, and
Great.
the piece that I personally brought to the meeting, since I am the secretary, is just how market works and our timeline for decision making being November. So it does sound like you know, the flood recovery project for the Capitol grounds will be many years, but I feel better for our ability to communicate moving forward and find solution. It does, yeah, I think we wanted to be in the room for certain conversations for a while now, and now we're there, so.
good, great answer,
Yeah.
thank you.
I got a report from the commission on the meeting. And BGS thought it went well.
Yeah, I did too.
And, yeah, they're moving sort of forward with 133, but at a limited space because of timing is unknown, and you know, the amount of equipment's kind of unknown right now.
I think we're gonna slide through July, August, no issues. That's my
Yeah.
personal take, but
Yeah,
we'll see.
so it sounded like it was a very good meeting, and
Mhm.
everybody sort of went away happy, and yeah,
Right.
I think, you know, maybe we helped a little bit on.
As long as it gets
You
worked
most
out.
definitely did.
Yeah, but anyway, any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Good to see you.
Elizabeth?
Here.
Oh, there you are. You're on the screen.
I'm on the screen.
Yeah. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. I am Elizabeth Roma. I don't know if everyone knows who I am. I'm a farmer and a owner of a butcher shop business in South Royalton. So I have done the farmers markets in the past, raising both poultry layers and pigs for meat for farmers markets. I came to the conclusion that as a meat farmer, farmers markets are not the way to get the volume needed to survive as a meat farmer. It's just not, it doesn't work. It's not sustainable. So I went and opened up a retail butcher shop. And currently I do not sell a single product of my own at the shop. I only sell from local farmers in the area. So I do not buy boxed meat. I buy whole carcasses directly from farmers, break it down here at my shop, and then sell it directly to consumers. So we are talking specifically about poultry here. I currently can only purchase from Misty Knoll, Maple Wind, Happy Bird, and I think there is one other that is a state inspected poultry processing facility that I can purchase from. And currently the only distributor that I can really get birds from in an accurate timeline to then sell fresh to our customers is Misty Knoll. And of course they're not in the room because this bill does not affect them at all. I am happy to support a poultry farmer in the state. But I am a huge advocate of this bill, not for my business, but because I believe that there's not enough poultry farmers, and most of our Vermont consumers are buying still from box stores chicken, and we need to start, we have plenty of Vermont farmers and there's raising birds, but people want to buy breasts, want to buy legs, they want to buy wings, they don't want to buy a whole bird. I think Rose is very on point when we are below the demand, and this bill will help open it up to our poultry farmers to get closer to the demand that is needed. So.
Yeah, and you break your own down once you get the bird to the market, or do you buy the bird in parts at the present?
Yeah, so I buy whole birds from Misty Knoll through the distributor of Black River Produce. So I have tried and worked with Maple Wind Farm, getting whole birds from them and bringing them to the shop. That requires me on my days off driving up there, picking them up when they're already a week old, then bringing them back to my shop, and then throughout that week processing them, and then they become 2 weeks old by then. So for me, I don't feel it's fresh as it should be compared to what Black River can do as a distributor. So I do know that based on my sales, I definitely sell out of parted chickens way before any whole birds. I maybe of the 20 birds I sell a week, I might sell one whole. And most of the time, they're all being parted. So, and that includes even the chicken backs then being used, and people buying those as well for broth. People want to buy chicken backs and they want to buy breasts. They don't want to buy a whole bird and do the whole thing. So, yes, as a business, I know what it looks like selling whole birds and parted birds, because that's what we do. This is, if we want Vermonters to eat Vermont meat, which I think that's the goal, we need to be able to allow this to go through so that that can actually happen. And so that we can start meeting that demand that, we are definitely lacking in. Everyone's still buying Tyson. So.
Yeah. Question, Irene?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this was probably clickbait, correct me if it was. I saw something online that talked about how things like chicken get processed in all kinds of chemicals in order to keep them fresh forever on the shelf. Are you aware of anything like this? Speaking of the bigger outside of Vermont in particular, but maybe it happens in Vermont too, that formaldehyde or some other chemical is used to make sure that these things have a shelf life, or is it just irradiation? Do you have any sense of what goes on in either your area of processing or the larger mass industrial chicken processing?
I have never worked in a industrial chicken processing facility. I've only worked in slaughterhouses that slaughter beef, pork, lamb, and goat. So I've worked at 2 different slaughterhouses in the state of Vermont. And we don't use large chemicals there, like formaldehyde or anything like that. There is a lactic acid that gets sprayed on carcasses, but that's for other reasons. But other than that, it's not that I know of. I know that at organic poultry processing facilities, a lot of time apple cider vinegar is used. That's really about it. So I can't speak to larger facilities because I don't work with them. I work only with Vermonters, only. And there is a huge hole of poultry accessibility. I mean, you have Happy Bird up in Isle, Vermont, who is sending birds to Middlebury. You have Maple Wind, who is kind of doing Richmond, Burlington. You have Misty Knoll, who is doing the whole state, but they're on a different scale. And then you have Stone down in the Brattleboro area. Besides that, what do you got? You have in between the whole middle state, there's not a single poultry processor in the Upper Valley. So how is the Upper Valley getting any poultry? We're not. We're getting it from Misty Knoll. We're getting it, through Black River somehow, or from Stone Farm somehow. And so I constantly send my customers to farmers to buy whole birds. Because yes, I'm going to sell chicken because I'm a butcher shop and we're going to sell chicken. It's going to be from Vermont, but more often than not, I am directing a lot of my customers to farms here in the area so that they can buy a whole bird, that then they come back to me to take classes where I teach them how to break down birds. They don't want to, but that's the only way it's going to work for them. So if we can get our farmers to be allowed to break down the birds, the farmers are going to profit and the customers are going to be happier. So.
Questions from the committee? Well, thank you, Elizabeth. Glad to have you with us. Do we have Bill Pierce on the screen?
Yes.
Yes, my daughter Hannah is going to speak with you. She's more versed in the particulars of our business.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Hannah, good morning and welcome.
Morning. We're Hannah and Bill Pierce from Hillside Farm up in Albany, Vermont. We're raising about 4,300 broiler chickens and 300 turkeys on pasture, and we're processing most of those here on farm. We are also bringing birds over to Maple Wind a few times a year so we can offer our customers cut up birds. We also go to the Montpelier Farmers Market. We're currently the only farm offering cut up poultry. As Rose said, like we're offering the similar things, I think it's clear between the three of us who have testified so far that I've seen, we are encouraging the bill because competition is good. We really support each other. Specifically, Rose and I and our farms have worked together. We trade information to, rising tides raise all ships. But I can speak specifically to a couple of things that both Rose and Elizabeth talked about, particularly the demand in the retail market for parted chickens. Though our sales of whole birds has remained remarkably consistent on a retail level. I have had the last 3 or 4 years, we've consistently held within, a number of about 10 people, the same amount of customers pre-ordering birds. And the numbers in terms of what percentage of our market is those whole birds that are direct to consumer has remained very steady, which we're very grateful for, but it's a harder market to grow. Compared to that, we saw a 61% increase in the last between 2023 and 2022 in sales of parts of chickens. And that we only expect to see grow because I sell out. I never have enough to meet the demand. And something that people don't really realize, I have a lot of customers saying, why can't I get your chicken in stores? Why can't I get any local chicken in stores? That's because there are very few like that has been said, there's very few places that process birds in a USDA facility that can sell in retail markets like stores. And the farms that would be raising those can't afford to sell them at a price that stores can then mark up. You'd only be able to get very highly priced chicken breasts and stuff like that. And it doesn't make sense for us producers that are getting chickens parted. There's no way I will make the same profit on birds if I tried to sell them at stores. And also, I don't have enough of them to do that. The market is very much there because it's not just what I'm selling at farmers market and from the farm, which are the places I sell these parts. There's also just very few options for consumers in stores besides Tyson and Purdue and stuff. And it's really the biggest part of the biggest growth in our business over the last couple of years has been those parts. I started bringing birds to be cut up in 2020, and I've sold out of everything I've brought every single year, far before I get to the next year of production. I'm already sold out of multiple parts, and will sell out probably in the next couple markets. And then I won't have more parts until mid to late June. And where the difference between the profit margin between a whole and parted bird, as Rose spoke to, is astronomical. It's more than double. And though I am already producing parts, the time, labor, effort, and expense of sending those birds away to get parted is really expensive. It's this year I would be paying $7.25 per bird to get back from the processor whole, and $11.25 or $11.50 to get parted. That's just the processing cost. And that's not an unfair cost. The amount of labor that goes into that production is big. And so I definitely don't shake my head at the prices that these processors have to charge. But I would like that money to stay on my farm. I would like to be able to pay my workers more because what they're producing is making us a bigger profit. This would provide at least 1 or 2 days of work for employees each week. My plan for this year, if this bill passes, is to start production pretty much immediately. We'll have to get a few pieces of equipment and work with some guidance to make sure we're doing everything right. But I would be able to increase production, offer fresh parts, which I've never been able to do. It would really change things for our farm. And also our principles of farming, this is much more aligned with that. We don't want to ship a trailer full of birds and bring them an hour and a half away. And that level, like the extra stress for the animals, we don't want to do that. This would be really huge for us and even more impactful for even smaller operations. And, we're nearing our limit of what we can produce on farm. We're, pretty close to that 5,000 bird limit. We need to be able to make as much of a profit off each individual bird as we possibly can. to make this work. And it is challenging.
Do you have a slaughter facility or cutting facility, right there on the farm?
So we have our processing facility for the slaughter, evisceration, chilling. We upgraded to an air chilling system a few years ago. So we've been operating under that inspection exemption for many years, for like 13 years. And then we have a space on the farm that's really well suited for the cut up operation. You know, running water, cement floors, the, you know, milk board walls. Like, it is going to be a relatively easy transition to have a space that will be really well suited to do this cutting operation. And like I said, we're going to get guidance from people who do more of that kind of work to make sure we're really prepared. But pretty much as soon as we can, we're going to start making any changes we need to and get the equipment and hit the ground running. So yeah, we're ready.
Yeah. Questions from the committee? No. Irene?
Yeah, and this, I guess I'd open this question to anybody. I heard the word humane, the words humane slaughter used. Would anyone have a problem having that word inserted in the bill? Or is
Caroline?
I'm happy for you guys maybe to hear from Michael O'Grady about that, but it doesn't have to be in the bill for it to be the law. The Humane Slaughter Act is in effect, and it's been referenced in the on-farm slaughter livestock law, but legally it doesn't make a difference.
super. Okay, thank you. That's important to me. I'm curious about the hesitation I'm hearing from some of the earlier presenters about the dangers of parting chickens. I mean, is this rocket science, or is there a list of things like you mentioned, concrete floor and, you know, air chilling or whatever? I mean, is this a known thing that you can go and look at videos on YouTube and get a list from the state ag department? Like, again, anybody can answer it, but I'm just wondering, is it really difficult, or is it just really expensive, or is it just that we're afraid something's gonna slip through the cracks because we're human?
I'm not certain what the exact resources are available from the state, but I mean, Vermont's, there are many states that have a similar program for on-farm parting. And I think Vermont's a little behind on that in terms of supporting small poultry producers. It's not rocket science. And I know for certain, you know, all the producers that would be taking advantage of this law, we're selling direct to consumers or direct to end user, as the law states. There's no middleman between who's using our chicken and us. That makes us really accountable to the quality and safety of our product, more so than like, you know, a huge processing facility. Anyone producing poultry in the state will attest that the quality and safety of our product is like the top priority, because we're interacting with people who are consuming our food. And I think that will follow through as we start cutting up the birds.
Thanks.
Excuse me, can I just weigh in here for a second?
This is Amber.
Oh,
Yes.
Amber?
So you can get those minimum requirements for a slaughter facility directly from the Vermont Department of Agriculture Meat Division. I believe it's available online.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for him? No?
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, and if we have other questions as we move, down the road with this, we'll get back in touch with you, or if you have questions of us, feel free to contact us anytime.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. We have one more. Is Jack, Forster or Foster on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Good morning.
Morning.
Sorry to push you right up to the noon hour, but
Yeah, I'll try to keep it quick. A lot of it's already been covered.
go ahead.
Great. Yeah, my name is Jack Forster. I'm a young farmer, at a small scale at this time. I'm the smallest producer that has presented today. I've been online for all the presentations and found them all really valuable to hear all these different perspectives. I'm a farmer and carpenter. I don't do the farming full time, partially because of the financials and partially because I'm starting out, which I guess also ties back to the financials. But this is my second full season as a poultry producer in the state. I've been raising poultry in California and Virginia before this. And Virginia is if you want to hear about other states that have these cut-up laws already in effect, Virginia is a great example of that. And I can speak firsthand to a few years' experience of what difference this cut-up exemption makes for small producers. Yeah, and I've as a sidebar, I've also worked as a meat cutter at a grocery store and seen inspected poultry versus uninspected poultry. And I can speak a lot to the accountability that direct-to-consumer sales of small producers tying into quality. And just because you're an inspected facility does not necessarily mean your quality is any higher. There's actually quite a variance in quality between inspected and uninspected. So this past year I raised 100 chickens, 50 ducks, and 35 turkeys. So diversified, very small scale poultry operation that I'm going to grow this year and hope to continue to grow. I think this exemption that we're talking about today is important to all poultry producers in the state. I think it provides a viable pipeline from someone like me as a small producer to grow to one of our first producers, Paul or Ember, who is established and been doing it for a long time. Really respects farmers who've been in it for a long time and they've been through that growth process. And I would also just like to acknowledge that it's getting harder and harder to meet the capital costs and the financial environment of a starting farmer. Anything that can help out a small farmer right now, especially in a state like Vermont that really supports local farmers, goes a long way, because there's a lot stacked against us, and the disadvantages structurally that we face as small producers are pretty large. And this cut up thing is one of those. I think it would create a much more dynamic marketplace for smaller producers, get access to a larger customer base. I can second what everyone said, that we are nowhere close to meeting demand. I sold out immediately. Obviously, it's a very small number of birds, but I have no doubt that I could sell so much more whole birds and parted up birds. And the biggest difference being the financial implications of selling cut up versus whole birds for a small producer starting out. And for that, I just have a quick slide. Is it possible for the host to enable screen sharing for a slide that I would like to share? I don't know if that's possible.
Yes, I'll make you co-host and then you can share it.
Great. I think you just made William Pierce a co-host and not Jeff Forster.
Sorry.
You're good. Great. Okay, so this is a couple caveats before I go through this. This is for organic pasture-raised chicken, which is one of the businesses I'm in. So we're looking at high price points and we're looking at like a top of the line item, but the percentages and ratios would hold out across any poultry sales. So I just wanted to do a visualization of what we're looking at for the value of a whole bird versus a parted up bird and how big of a difference it can make for farmers. So if you can sell a whole 4.5 pound chicken, which is pretty average size, for $27, and then you look at the cost breakdown for breaking it down into breasts, legs and thighs, wings, livers and hearts, feet, backs, heads, you're looking at a huge price gap. And some other farmers even testified to it doubling the amount you can get from a bird in profits, which I think is true, because we're just looking at raw sales here. There is a lot of work that goes into parting up a bird, and it's not straight profit, but relatively there's not way more work going in to get from a whole bird to a parted bird. So any sales on top of that current value of a whole bird being processed, it's going to be a big jump in sales, but an even way bigger jump in profit. So you're looking at a pretty big financial difference and really a game changer for farming, which obviously is a historically low profit margin business, and go to small farms struggling even more, size are shrinking. Like, anything you can do to increase profit margins without adding on significantly more to an already big workload is a really big deal. And that's exactly what I think this parted up poultry exemption works with. So I don't think it's a silver bullet to have this parted up poultry bill. I do think it helps small farmers a lot. And a couple other small parts that I'd like to go into with my production that I haven't heard brought up yet. So I kill all my own birds on farm, and I also deal with waterfowl in addition to landfowl, like the turkey and chicken versus the ducks and geese. Processing time, if you don't have to worry about all your birds being perfectly plucked, or if you have a bird in a plucker and it has a broken wing, if you can part up that totally fine saleable bird minus the having to spend 15 minutes finishing plucking a bird that didn't pluck cleanly, or having a broken wing that makes it so it's not saleable as a whole bird. If you can then part those birds up and skip that extra processing time, not have to sell birds at a discount for purely cosmetic reasons, it's a really big difference in your day spent processing poultry. So you're like, it's a big morale downer when you have a duck, which are much harder to pluck than chickens or turkeys. Yeah, when come out of the plucker, it's just sometimes they come out and it's like, oh man, this thing has a ton of pin feathers. That like demotivates everyone. Like, this is gonna be a much longer day if the birds are gonna go that way. If you can then say, okay, stop, don't worry about getting that one perfect. We're gonna be cutting up into breasts and legs and thighs anyways. Do as good as you can on that bird. Get it chilling, get it to a safe temp sooner. If you can speed up the processing day, keep morale higher, all those things, that's a big difference in what your kill day looks like. So it allows you the potential to process more birds in a day, so you can raise more birds. It allows you to spend less money on labor. There's just a lot of implications down the line of having that option of not only selling these birds as whole birds. Yeah, and my kind of closing thing is that I'm a carpenter and farmer, and farming is what I want to do. It's the business that I want to grow, and it's what I want to be doing more full time. And a change like this makes that much more viable for me, and it provides more local food for Vermont, creates a more resilient local agriculture economy in the state, gets more small producers on a strong foothold before they start climbing the ladder into higher numbers, or staying at that number like you've heard from other producers, but it allows you to get that foothold financially to then look at going into into inspected facilities and higher numbers. And I think it's just a really good boost for the industry as a whole. I think you're highly accountable to the consumer at these small levels of production. And there's no incentive in any case, to produce unsafe birds. And I really don't think that small producers are at the heart of listeria outbreaks or whatever. That, like, if you look at the numbers on that, I guarantee that most of those are coming from large producers for a whole other host of reasons that large production brings on. But yeah, that's basically what I have, and appreciate you guys hearing me today.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jack. I don't see any questions, but wanna thank you for bringing up the tail end of our morning here, and we do have another meeting in about 7 minutes. So, thank you, and thank the witnesses that came in person. We'll move forward.